part of it is just controlling that demon in me, which is very, very important because he wants to destroy me.
Stephen, how did you find Carnivore?
I just want to start out by saying that I'm a little under the weather today. I went camping this weekend and I came back with a bunch of really weird bug bites. And I woke up yesterday morning with a cold sore. Every time I have a cold sore, my brains get a little scrambled. And so I've been mixing and matching my words. And just forgive me if I'm not as sharp as I usually am. So I want to start out by reading a quick excerpt from an essay I wrote recently that shows the power of the ketogenic diet and carnivore and what that does for me. Okay. I am 47 years old, and before discovering the ketogenic diet, I endured 30 years of profound suffering. In brief, the ketogenic diet has transformed me into a completely different person. To elaborate, I refer to my experiences as off and on. When I'm off, meaning not in ketosis or not on the diet, life is hard and even feels impossible. I am irritable, angry, depressed, and I hate myself and everyone around me. I hate life and everything in it. Each day becomes a source of dread. My productivity plummets as I procrastinate, leaving tasks incomplete and my to-do list ever growing. When I'm off, everyone annoys me, even strangers at the store, and I prefer isolation over engaging with others. Most importantly, in this off state, I struggle to fulfill my role as a father, failing to manage my daughter's behavior, which causes significant strain on our family dynamics. Furthermore, the negative voice inside my head, which I call the demon, he grows strong, he overpowers me, and he urges me towards self destructive behaviors, including substance abuse. Now, when I stick to my version of the ketogenic diet, which is carnivore, I achieve deep ketosis through a high fat version of the diet. I transition to being on. I'm no longer the angry mess of a suffering person as when I'm off. When I'm on, life is easy, very easy. I'm calm and happy. I find myself smiling and whistling. I love myself. I love everyone around me. I love life. I look forward to all the simple pleasures in life. Ketosis gives me what I call effortless enthusiasm. My productivity soars as I tackle all my tasks. I complete them thoroughly. I even seek additional challenges by the day's end. Social interactions become a source of joy. I'm not avoiding people any longer. I actively engage with strangers, initiate conversations, and offer compliments. Best of all, and most importantly, in this state of ketosis, I am a competent father and I am able to manage my daughter's needs. She affectionately refers to me as her best buddy, and our family dynamic has improved significantly. Lastly, in ketosis, the demon is subdued. I am no longer influenced by him. He does not influence my actions or my decisions. So that is the power of the ketogenic diet for me. Yeah. So as I said, I'm 47. So I was born in 1977 and I suffered anxiety and depression all through childhood. But as a young kid, I didn't really recognize what that was. I just never felt right. I was always smaller and lighter than everyone else. I always felt less than. At the time, I was eating a typical standard American diet for the 80s. There was meat and vegetables, but a lot of cereal and candies and all that stuff. Somewhere between the ages of 8 and 12, I was an abuse victim to multiple predators. And at the age of 13, in 1990, I sought treatment for anger management because I was very, very angry. And I would kick holes in walls and yell and scream and ruin holidays. I had trouble keeping friends and trouble fitting in. I was very angry, very depressed, lots of feelings of despair. And as a 13-year-old, it's confusing. I didn't even understand what the emotions really were. And as I went through my teen years, I started making some very irresponsible decisions like running away, and my alarm clock would go off in the morning for school and I would bash it with my hand and break it into pieces, and so hard that I would be bleeding on my hand just because I was so angry that my alarm was going off. At the age of 16, I smoked pot for the first time, and it was the first time in my life I would say that I felt normal. I didn't even really feel great or high or any of those things. I just felt like a normal person. What I imagined normal would be like. So from 16 to 18, I started smoking a lot of pot because it was really the only way I could feel normal. At the age of 18, 1995, I graduated high school. I started a job that I'm still currently in, but I was not doing well. And around this time, I had terrible acne, and I started vegetarian diet for my acne. A friend's mother was asking me about my diet, and she mentioned dairy. And I said, "Well, I'm a skinny kid. I'm trying to gain weight, so I'm drinking a lot of milk." She said, "Why don't you cut out the milk and see what happens?" And my acne improved. I was shocked. So it was the first time there was ever a connection between what I ate and how it affected me. So I was vegetarian at this time. I kept eating dairy, but I didn't drink milk. And I had fish. And then over the years, I would eat lots of tofu and lots of soy products and nuts and seeds. But I had a tremendous issue with smoking marijuana. Anytime that I wanted to try to stop, I couldn't. I was hooked on it. And I sought treatment for it. But back then, marijuana abuse was not a thing. It wasn't recognized. It was unless you were snorting coke or sticking a needle in your arm. These treatment centers I went to, they wouldn't accept me. So it just further cemented my feelings of not fitting in and never being accepted. It was terrible. I'm like raising my hand saying, "I need help." And there was nobody there to help me. So this led to me floundering for a few years. I was living on my own, which was not really good for me because I don't have very good impulse control and continue to make poor decisions. I have a bunch of tattoos on me that I got around that time because I would wake up angry and say, "I need to feel better." And I'm gonna go get a tattoo because that'll make me feel better. Well, how stupid is that? um, so at the age of 25, it was around 2002, I was really struggling and I was smoking a lot of pot. I wanted to stop and I couldn't. Every time I tried, couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. So I sought treatment for that, and I went to an intensive outpatient program, which was 6 months, and it was about 5 days a week. I think we started 3 hours a day, and I went 6 months with no pot, and I felt even worse the day I went in. I felt terrible, and they explained it to me like your troubles in life are mountains, and I got over this small mountain of this pot use, and now I've got this big mountain in front of me of depression, and I wish they hadn't explained it that way because it seems so daunting. This is when I started with psychiatric treatment and all the SSRIs, the Prozac and the Paxil, and lots of different psychiatrists and lots of different meds. And I took Remron and Effexor and Wellbutrin and all these different things. None of it ever really worked for me. It was all some of it, especially the SSRIs, just made me worse. I went on for years just kind of floundering, still going. I went back to the pot, and a very prominent feeling was just hating the reflection in the mirror, hating myself. I always wanted to change my appearance. And through the years, I had very long hair. I had hair past my shoulders. I had very short hair. I had mohawks. I had all different combinations of facial hair. And I would still go and get tattoos as a means of trying to feel better and change my appearance. I would then see myself in the mirror and like myself. All right. So now we're at around 2005. I'm 28. I'm doing more to help myself. I'm heavily involved in AA. I've been through a couple different sponsors. I've had sponsees of my own. I'm very involved. Still eating a vegetarian diet, but it's mostly standard American diet with no meat. And I'm miserable and I'm depressed. And I keep waking up every day just wanting to be dead. I don't really want to kill myself. Anytime I think about the steps it would take to actually kill myself, I stop and I don't want to do it. And I think about my family and my pets that I care for and how it would affect everybody. But I just wanted to be dead to end my suffering. And at one point, my sponsor said, "That's it. I'm taking you to the hospital because you can't keep living like this because you're probably not going to make it much longer feeling this way." So that's when I did my second intensive outpatient program. And now it was a dual diagnosis. It wasn't just the substance abuse. This is when they said I was bipolar 2 mixed. And along with the Wellbutrin and the Effexor I was already taking, they added Lamictal. Lamictal is a key part of my story because it's an anti-seizure med, and it worked pretty well for me. It was still like most meds where it worked somewhat for some of the time, but it worked pretty well compared to everything else I've ever taken. Um, So on that combination of meds, I was okay. I wasn't terrible. I didn't wanna kill myself, but I didn't really enjoy living either. It's kind of a numb state. You may hear that from people that take meds. So around the age of 30, I bought my first house. I met my wife. Now having that stable presence was a great influence, and I started to reduce my meds. And I was okay. If you ask people around that time what they thought of me, they wouldn't know that I was bipolar or that I was a mess. They would think I was okay, but on the inside, I really wasn't okay. I was still struggling a lot. I still had a lot of depression. I still had a lot of feelings of despair. I always felt like something was missing. And at the age of 35, I went on Wellbutrin for a short time. That didn't really do much for me. I was into heavy weightlifting at the time. I found a program called the Carb Backload. So you would fast during the day, do a heavy workout, and then eat all your food and your carbs late at night. And if you drink a bunch of water with it, you wake up and your muscles are all filled with glycogen. You get a really great pump out of it. So that's important because it ties back into when I end up going low carb in the future. But I was still vegetarian. So I'm eating a lot of nuts and seeds and hemp seeds. I thought hemp was like the perfect protein for our bodies, and chia seeds and green powders. And I'm trying to find the right green powder. I always felt like something was missing. So I'm trying to find the correct green powder out there or the combo of supplements that'll work. I'm drinking these shakes every morning and not realizing that I wake up with this immensely strong urge to have a bowel movement, and I'm having 3 to 5 bowel movements a day and just thinking that it's normal. That changes all when I go to keto and carnivore. So around 2013, I was now a vegan. So I was a vegetarian and a vegan for 20 years. The end of it, I was a vegan, and now I found Brandon Brazier. He's got the Vega brand. He is an Ironman triathlete, and he wrote the Thrive Diet. So I found his book. He's doing Ironman triathletes, and he's eating raw vegan. So I'm like, this is it. I'm vegan, but I'm cooking all my food. I need to go raw vegan. So that's what I do. Well, I just declined from there. It just things got worse. My skin, my mood, everything was terrible. So coming up on 2015, I was desperate. I decided to add meat back in, and I started to feel better right away from that. And it added a lot of fun and joy to my life, which was great because I had been vegetarian for so long. So I reached out to a bunch of friends and give me all your favorite meat things that you eat at your favorite meat places. And I started traveling around and getting all this meat. It was great. Um, so now at the age of 40, my daughter's born. I had a terrible accident. I broke my wrist, dislocated my hand, and now I'm no longer working out. And with a kid, we're strapped for cash, and I'm eating as cheaply as possible. So now I'm eating pasta every day, and I'm making my own sourdough. That's one of the things that I would say that the act of caring for the starter and making the bread, I enjoyed that process. I did that for a couple years, but I was eating sourdough bread every day and pasta every day and oatmeal, like just the cheapest things I could find. And I had terrible, terrible skin issues, terrible eczema, was very depressed. And it really made no sense because I had a great job, a great wife. I just had a brand new baby. I had no reason to be depressed, but I was miserably depressed. And at this point, I ballooned up to 190 pounds. So as you see me today, I'm 145. At my heaviest, I was 180, 185, but I was a heavy power lifter. I was deadlifting and squatting. I was 185 with a lot of muscle. I got up to 190, but I hadn't worked out for 2 years because of my wrist. It was not a good look. I had a big gut. I was uncomfortable. Couldn't put my shoes on. So now at 42, my daughter's 2.5, and I'm just so miserable, and it's getting worse and getting worse. And I remembered the carb backload. I remembered enjoying it. So I got to do something. So I lowered my carbs. I cut out the bread and the pasta, and I lost 20 pounds in just a few weeks. And I felt so much better, and my mood improved. And on my commute back and forth to work, I remember hearing Vinny Tortorich talk about the carnivore diet. And at the time, I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. How could anybody just eat meat every day? How boring. And where would we get our nutrients that we're missing from vegetables and everything that we've been taught? But it stuck in my mind because it was interesting. And I'm the type of person that would do something different like that, that would take a different path. So it's stuck in my mind. And I noticed over the next couple of months, as I continued to lower my carbs and eat more meat, I lost more weight and I felt better and better. My skin was improving. All my conditions were improving. So I just kept following down that path. That's how I do things. If it works, I'm going to keep doing it, and I keep going. So now, at the age of 44 in 2020, COVID hit. I start working from home, and now I'm no longer going to the gym. I have a gym in my basement, and because of that, I'm lifting a lot, and because I don't regulate myself very well, even with a healthy activity like lifting, if it feels good, I'm probably going to end up doing it too much. So I'm lifting a lot, and I get very beat up from it, very sore. I've got injuries, and I keep trying to heal by taking a week off. Now, for me, I had been barbell lifting for many, many years, except for when I broke my wrist. So it's part of my life. It's very difficult to take a week off. I feel like I'm doing something wrong. So I would take a week off, but I was not healing. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to stop lifting until I feel better. And it was about 3 weeks until I really started to feel better. And during that time, I started to feel mood wise the best I had ever felt in my entire life. I didn't know what was going on. But looking back now, I know that's the first time I was ever in ketosis. I was tracking my food. And when I looked at my food, my diet was very similar to how it is today. I was already getting beef fat trimming from the butcher, and I was eating just beef and meat. I'm sorry, beef fat and meat. And it was a large amount of fat. My fat was like at 90%. But what I noticed was because I'm not lifting weights, I'm not stimulating my appetite, and I'm eating just whatever is comfortable, and it ends up being under maintenance or around maintenance. So that helps you get into a deeper ketosis. But I just didn't know what was going on at the time. So, and I was really curious because I'm thinking, man, if this was somehow in a pill, I would just take this every day. I want to know what this is. So when I researched it, that's when I discovered what the ketogenic diet is. And I saw that it was used for epilepsy. And I had this light bulb moment. And this ties back to the Lamictal being an anti-seizure med and the pot being an anti-seizure treatment as well. And it just turns out that all of the strains of marijuana that always work best for me, that are my favorite and made me feel the best, are the ones they use to prevent seizures. So why wouldn't this ketogenic diet work for me if it's an anti-seizure thing? There's always been some connection between what's in my brain and the way epilepsy works, even though I've never had seizures. So now I start kind of going down this path, but it was difficult and I floundered, and I would go off the diet. I would eat things I shouldn't, and I started learning what affects me, and turns out that almost everything besides meat affects me. So I did lots of self-experimentation experiments, lots of experiments. Sometimes I'd be feeling really good and just want to add something back in and see how it would go. Sometimes I would not be feeling so good and eat things that I shouldn't to try to feel better. And then at the age of 45, it's like 2021, somebody on Reddit I was talking to asked if I had ever done DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy. Now, I had done CBT, which is the cognitive, which is more like a talk therapy, but DBT is very structured and you have workbooks and assignments and everything. It's for borderline personality disorder. And I don't put much stock in the DSM and how they do the criteria for all of these disorders. But I fit in all of these different ones. I don't fit in one box. I don't fit in the bipolar or the borderline or the schizophrenia, but I have a little bit of each of these. So when I look at the borderline, I can identify with a lot of those symptoms. I said, all right, well, why not? I mean, I'm trying to do the best I can. I want to be the best dad I can. So let me look into this. I was fortunate to find somebody close, and I did a year of DBT. And but I was still struggling. I couldn't really get my diet together the way I need. I couldn't get back to that good feeling I had when I stopped lifting. So that was the last time that I took Lamictal. I took it for about a year just to try to hold myself together. Um, I was floundering a lot, but through this time, I'm not using the marijuana anymore. So that's just an indication that I was already doing a lot better than I had been in the past. And I wasn't feeling suicidal and I wasn't miserably depressed. I just wasn't doing very well, but better than the past. It's already showing you what the diet does, even though I'm not staying on it. So this takes us to last September. I didn't have a great summer. I didn't really, I didn't stick to my diet the way I want to. So I committed to beef only is what I did. I wanted to just do beef only in September because beef is the only thing that I don't have any issues with. We can get into it later and I can explain like if I eat chicken or pork and what those things do to me. Beef is like the safest thing, and high fat beef, really, I can't go wrong with. So I start this beef only thing, and I'm like, all right, well, let me go on Facebook and Twitter and see. Let me join some of these groups, but I couldn't find a group where I really belong. There's carnivore groups, but as you probably know, the carnivores they're eating animal products, so they're eating all kinds of stuff. They eat dairy and cheese and all different animals. When you get to beef only, there's the lion diet, which is Michaela Peterson. So that's ruminant meat, salt and water. It's usually beef, salt and water. So that's what I do, but there's no focus on fat. They're able to eat steaks all day and they're good. I can't do that. If I eat steaks all day, I'm still miserable and depressed. So a couple months back, I decided I need to start my own group. And even if I'm the only member of my own group, at least I have an identification. That's what I call HFBO, or high fat beef only, which is now a combination of the lion diet and the therapeutic ketogenic diet. And what that means is on most days, I try to keep my total fat percentage at or above 90%. And if I do that, I'm going to feel amazing. I'm going to feel a 10 plus. It's going to be amazing. And I've started a Facebook group and I talk a lot about it online. And I've been helping a lot of people too. And people that are struggling, whenever they increase their fat percentage, they always end up feeling better. And that's where I'm at today. It's been a year. And now since I started the beef only, I won't say that I'm perfect because I'm not. I aim for perfection to help guide myself, but I'm never perfect. And I haven't been perfect for the last 12 months, but I've been probably 90% perfect. And I've had the best 12 months of my life. I had the best summer of my life, literally the best 12 months of my life. And that's saying a lot to be able to get through a fall. And then when we change the clocks back and the winter, and those are always very, very tough times for me. And I made it through the last 12 months being the best I've ever had. And I owe it all to the way I'm doing this diet.
That's awesome. The first question I have for you is, with a 90% fat diet, I mean, what does that look like day to day?
It's funny because a lot of people ask that. So it's literally just a large pile of beef fat and a small pile of meat. And I eat once a day, usually. So it's usually just about one meal.
So, is that you're going to your butcher and you're just saying, "Give me as much fat as you can"?
Basically, yeah. So I have two sources. I have a local mom and pop butcher where I can go in there anytime and they have their fat bin and I can pick fat out of it. Or I have my local supermarket. And when prime rib goes on sale for the holidays like Christmas and Easter, they're cutting a lot of prime ribs and they have a lot of fat. And I've got a really good relationship with the one butcher and he saves me all of his prime rib beef fat. And I stock up and I literally will get 40 to 50 pounds of fat for each holiday. And I will save it. I vacuum seal it and I freeze it. So I'm eating the best you can get prime rib fat most of the time. That's what I eat.
How is your family with this? Are they kind of doing this as well, or?
Well, so it's my wife and my daughter here, and my wife does her own thing. She is not keto yet. I'm still working on her. I'm hoping someday she will be. She has a thyroid issue. She does no dairy, and she listens. She follows me a little bit. She's gluten free, and she still avoids seed oils. But she's not mentally ill like I am, so she can have those things that don't really affect her that bad. Now my daughter's 8, and recently, as of this summer, we did more of a carnivore approach with her, and she is eating beef fat even though she does not like it. She doesn't love it like I do, but it's been years for me, and it took me a while to like it too.
Eating that much fat, have you that's never caused you any bathroom issues?
Yes, of course, especially in the beginning when I was doing this, it wasn't all beef fat. At one point, I was still doing dairy, which I can't touch dairy, but I was doing butter and the MCT oil and the coconut oil. And this is what you'll find. I'm out there on Facebook and Reddit and talking to people, and this is what people are doing for their fat. So when you're consuming a lot of oils to get your fat up, it's like playing Russian roulette. You never know when you're going to have to run to the bathroom. You may have a fountain coming out of your back end. That does happen. And through the years of eating beef fat, there have been times where I ate a lot, yes, and within 6 to 8 hours, my stomach would be upset, and it took some time to get used to it, but not anymore. I mean, I'm 5.5 years into this thing, and I've been eating a lot of beef fat for a couple of years. I could eat a pound of beef fat in one sitting, and it's not a problem. I don't have any issues. I love it.
No, that's cool. Yeah, because I think that would be most people's first thought is, yeah, there's no way I could do that because I'd just be in the bathroom all the time. The connection that you found between all the epilepsy related stuff is very interesting. Have you done any more research into why that might be?
There's no answers. That's the thing. It's very complex and complicated. I follow Dr. Palmer very closely. He has the brain energy theory, and he boils it all down to mitochondria. So there's some connection with the mitochondria. So I either have too few, or the ones I have are either overactive or underactive. They're not processing energy correctly. And when that happens, you can get all these symptoms. And that's why most people don't fit neatly into a box of, hey, you're bipolar. Most people have a spectrum across different illnesses. So there's got to be something going on there with the epilepsy that would cause seizures that is also affecting me to feel the way I do. But there's really no answer there.
Have you come across anyone that has, been in a similar situation to yourself that has found that the marijuana or taking the epilepsy drugs have helped them?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. My first guest that I had on my show was Brett Lloyd. Um, he's one of the well-known carnivores, and the carnivore diet plus a combination of medical marijuana really works well for him. And I've spoken to plenty of people that have been on anti-seizure drugs, and it works for them.
How has your Facebook group been received? Have you had a lot of people joining that are trying this very high fat approach?
People are very interested, and the HFBO group I literally just started like within the last 2 weeks. There's probably a dozen of us in there. But I'm across a bunch of different groups on Facebook that are keto for mental health. There's several of them. And what I'll do is I test my blood, my glucose, my ketones, and I get very very high ketone numbers at times the way I do my diet, and I post them, and people are like, "Well, how are you doing that? And what are you eating?" And they're very very curious. And there's probably a group of at least 10 to 12 people that are very interested, and I've been talking to them and trying to help them up their fats. And then I have people literally all across the globe in Australia and Germany and Canada that I work with one on one. And my first bit of advice to them, they're all suffering from mental illnesses. Go to your butcher and get the beef fat. Forget the MCTs and the coconut oil and all that stuff, and just get the animal fat if you want to try doing it like I do it. And everybody is curious and they want to know what it's like, but it seems like it's a struggle for a lot of people because we're taught our whole lives that fat is bad for us and we don't eat fat. So we're not even used to it.
You've been in a situation where you've run the gamut of diets, right? So you've been vegan, vegetarian, all the way through to high fat beef only, carnivore, and or lion. It must feel like, you've as you've been going through this, you've just been turning the dial to get to the point where you feel good, right? It's like if I do keto, then it's halfway there, but I need to go high fat beef only to get 100% of the way there. So now, is it a case if you do drop off a little bit, like you might, if you go to a birthday and you have a bit of birthday cake or whatever it happens to be, you kind of you notice it going backwards, or is that one kind of cheat day okay?
No, I absolutely notice it. And while I've said that I'm not perfect and I do eat things I shouldn't, I'm not eating birthday cake. Luckily, those days are over. As of about maybe 2 years ago, I haven't had that kind of thing. Part of that is wheat is one of my biggest offenders. So anything made with flour, I've been, like even when I go off and I eat things I shouldn't, I'm not eating a wheat product because that's going to destroy me. I'm going to get the eczema right away. I'm going to feel depressed and irritable. And I wear special contacts. It makes my contacts very, very foggy, so I can't see. So it's just terrible for me. But really, to answer your question more specifically, I absolutely notice when I don't do my diet the right way. And what I've been struggling with the past 6 months or so is that if I'm not sticking to this HFBO way of doing things, I will go from a 10 to an 8 on the scale, if you want to say 100 to 80. And at 80, I'm still doing really well. I'm not going to be depressed and anxious. I'm gonna be very productive, I'm gonna feel good. But there is a huge difference in that 20%, a huge difference. And unfortunately for me, my first symptom is the irritability and the anger. And so if I'm not gonna have that extra 20% and I'm gonna be snapping at my kid, I'm gonna be a terrible dad or, a bad husband, or I'm gonna walk out back and I'm gonna hear the neighbor's dogs barking. I'm like, shut that dog up. That's my thought in my head. I don't wanna live like that. That's that 20% for me. And until I discovered this full 100% of doing things, I would have lived at an 80 forever. I would have been fine like that because compared to my 20% or my 10% where I want to die every day, how I lived for such a long time, the 80 is amazing, but I want to be at that 100%. And that's why I try to stick to my diet the best I can. Um, what I found is, so for me, like you're saying about cheat days, like I don't do cheat days, but I don't keep my fat at 90% every day. I mix in a lot of fasting and I'm still highly active. I still work out and I still like to eat a lot of meat when I can. So I can do a day or two of higher meat, lower fat. My fat might still be like at 75 or 80%. But if I do it for more than 2 days in a row, I will see my ketones will go down and I will start to not feel as good.
Interesting. So on the, going to 80%, or, when you were below that, um has your wife given you any feedback or said anything that she's noticed?
I mean, it's a huge difference for me. Yeah. So like I said, I'm a completely different person. So rather than lashing out or screaming and cursing or any of those things, when I'm at the 100%, I can remain calm and like I said, I'm handling my daughter's issues. And so she's given me that feedback. So she sees it. She knows, um, unfortunately what can happen at times. Like I woke up yesterday with a cold sore and I was feeling fine. But then by the end of the day, whatever happened in the house, and all of a sudden I yelled, and she's like, "What's going on with you?" I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry, the cold sore." Like all it takes sometimes is a little cold or lack of sleep, and it takes the edge off, and it's extremely noticeable right away. I also notice a big difference in my relationship with my daughter. My daughter has like this radar to where she knows when I'm off or on before I even know, especially first thing in the morning. And there'll be days where she's starting to antagonize me, and I don't understand why, and then I end up flipping out on her, like, I guess I'm having a bad day. But I notice when I'm at the 100% that she's very affectionate with me and I'm getting more hugs and kisses and we're more best buddies and she wants me to spend more time with her. There's a big difference.
How about friends? Like, if friends were like, "You wanna go out for dinner?" or things like that, do you do that? And can you go somewhere that'll give you enough of a meal?
No, so fortunately, I started this whole thing during COVID and we were locked down and we couldn't even go out. Prior to that, going out wasn't really that big a deal. We would go out for birthdays and stuff, but I kind of started like developing the diet and doing it while we couldn't even go out. So that's not all that important to me. Um, and fortunately, my friends we're kind of like spread far apart. I don't see them very often. So that's not something that I would normally do. I could go to a place and get a steak, but for me, like, what's the chances that I'm going to get a steak that wasn't possibly fried in seed oils or have seasoning on it? And all those things are going to somehow affect me. So it's just not worth it. What I've discovered in the last year or so is, I don't know if you're familiar with Korean barbecue. It's like a hot pot and Korean barbecue. So they opened one, yeah, they opened one by my house and they serve plain fatty meats. So that's what I eat. So we just went recently for my brother's birthday and my daughter loves it. So we do go once in a while. I do bring my own fat. One of the things I've done in the last couple of months is now I've transitioned to almost fully raw carnivore, and I'm not even cooking my food anymore because I just love it. It's so superior to cooking my food. But when I was still cooking my food, I would bring a little Ziploc of fat with me, and I'd be cooking it on the grill at the Korean place, and also eating their meat. So that's really my answer to that. I don't really care about the social aspect. That's not a part of my life that I'm missing. I don't care.
So, how's the raw thing been going for you? Like, what's the change?
Oh, it's amazing. So when I first started this, like 5 years ago, and I was eating only meat, everything was well done, like really well done. And that's how I always liked my meat when I started eating it again back in 15. And then I found that I was starting to like it medium. And then I started doing a sous vide. A couple years ago, I got a sous vide machine. You're familiar with that? So with a sous vide, what I liked about it is that you could pick a medium temperature and the water bath cooks the meat a medium all the way through. But if you're doing a medium on a griddle or in the oven, the outside's going to be well done. So I didn't like that well done part. I wanted the whole thing medium. So I was doing sous vide for a couple of years, and I started lowering my temperature down on that and getting that even less and less cooked to a more rare. Um, Part of it was the work involved. I noticed that when I switched from cooking to sous vide, I don't have all the cleanup. I'm not cleaning a pan and all the tallow out of the pan and all that stuff, which I enjoyed. It's less time in my life spent on food. I want food to be my energy for the day. I want it to be as quick and easy as possible. So probably going back, I guess when I started the beef only thing about a year ago, there'd be times where I'd just be really hungry and I'd have a couple bites of my food raw. And I noticed that I really enjoyed it. But we're always taught about bacteria and I was scared. Like, I don't want to eat too much. I have had food poisoning in the past. I didn't want to get food poisoning, but I really enjoyed the bites of food that I was having raw. So I stopped sous videing because I didn't want to spend the time with it. And I would just sear my meat and sear my fat. I was just really enjoying it. So through the winter, I just started to just eat more and more raw. At one point I was eating like half my food raw, the other half I was cooking. And I'm like, why am I even cooking this? Because I'm not enjoying the cooked meat. Unless it has a lot of salt on it or it's been cooked on a grill and it's got a smoky flavor, I'm not enjoying it. So I don't know, somewhere around 6 months ago, I just said, I'm going to eat most of my food raw now. And I was doing like my cheat days, like you want to say, like my treat was having a grilled steak, a steak on the grill. But I noticed that I really wasn't enjoying it that much. Like in my mind, the idea of a cooked steak sounds great. So one of the things I noticed right away was when I'm eating raw, it's not I'm not salting it either. So it's not really super palatable. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. Whether I'm eating a prime rib, a T-bone, or a top round, it all kind of just tastes the same. And I guess the best way to explain it to someone who doesn't know is that it's bland, but I don't find it that way. I find it tastes really good, but it's a bland flavor compared to a cooked steak. So what I noticed was when I'm having these cooked steaks, I could way overeat on the cooked meat. But when I'm eating raw, I don't have that. Like, so it's the demon in me that I spoke about. It's the craving for more. Well, I really could go for a cooked steak right now, salted. And then I have to stop and ask myself, well, would I eat a raw pile of beef fat right now? I don't want that. But I would eat a cooked steak on the grill right now. So it's part of it is just controlling that demon in me, which is very, very important because he wants to destroy me. If I can keep him to sleep, I do whatever I can. Um, so the other thing I noticed is eating raw for a while and then going to cook meats is my digestion is different. So, and other people will echo this. They'll say when you eat raw, you don't even feel it. You don't even feel it in your stomach. You don't feel your digestion. I could eat a pound of fat and half a pound of meat, and in 20 minutes, I could go for a run. I could exercise. I wouldn't even know I ate. I just go from hungry to no longer hungry. But when I start mixing in some cooked meats, like a couple weeks ago at my daughter's birthday party, I had a cooked burger, and it was just like chewing it didn't feel good, swallowing it was difficult, and I felt it. I felt it here going down. I felt it in my stomach, and then I felt it for a while, and I was burping from it too. And I made a pot roast recently for the family, and as I'm cutting it up, I had a couple pieces. I didn't think much of it, but I did not enjoy it. It was hard to swallow. And then again, I felt it. I was burping. I got gas from it, which is what pork and chicken can do to me. So it was very strange. And then I went back to raw, and it just feels right eating the food raw. It just feels great. I love it.
And your wife, what does she feel about you eating raw meat? Like, did she kind of like, "Stop doing that, that's crazy"?
Well, so she knows me well enough that that would fall on deaf ears to say stop doing that because she knows I'm going to do what I want to do. But no, she thinks I'm absolutely crazy. Yes, she does. So does everyone else.
Um, so what would your advice be to someone who wanted to get started with carnivore or high-fat beef only?
Okay, so the advice I would give here is very simple, and it would apply to this. It would also apply to a new exercise program or doing anything in life is to take it easy, go slow, and just be gentle on yourself. Don't jump into something really drastic overnight because you set yourself up for failure. And if you want to try eating, if you've never eaten beef fat before and you want to try eating it, you're probably going to want to cook it really crispy and get it really crispy and salt it so it's palatable. Um, if you're somebody who's already eating a ketogenic diet and you want to up your fat, it really the same thing applies. Try to replace some of your oils with animal fats instead and see what happens. I mean, there are people out there that are doing vegan keto for bipolar, and I'm not as familiar with that diet, but they can still tweak things. Even a vegetarian that's doing dairy, you can tweak things. And so it starts with tracking your food. You got to know what your fat percentage is. You have to weigh and track your food, at least in the beginning. And if you're at an 80%, don't just jump right to 90. Literally go to 82 for a week, then go to 85 for a week and see how you're feeling. This way, you're not going to have those runs to the bathroom. And if it takes 6 weeks to get up to 90, go slow, take it easy, and it'll be well worth it.
Nice. So Stephen, how can people find you? Can you tell us about your channel?
Sure. So I have the logo here behind me is for my YouTube channel. It's called Find Your Keto, and that's like the third or fourth name I came up with. I don't really identify so much as a carnivore, and I do not push the carnivore message, even though I've had carnivore guests. Uh, I'm mostly concerned about mental health because that's what I'm so passionate about. But I feel like the keto diet is appropriate for most people, and it will help a whole host of conditions. But everybody's keto is a little bit different. I never expect anybody to do keto like I do. So I believe that everybody has their own keto. So I want to help you find your keto. That's where I came up with the name. The handle is MT4MH. So if you want to find me on X or Facebook or Insta, any of those places, it's MT4MH. And that originally that was stands for Metabolic Therapy for Mental Health. That was the original name of the YouTube channel. I'm most active on X. I am gotten more active on Facebook because there's a lot of people out there that were interacting and it's been a lot of fun. But if you want to really follow me on X is where you're going to see the most. I also have a keto for mental health group on X that you can join. And my group on Facebook is the HFBO, high fat beef only. You can find that too.
Awesome. Well, I'll link to all of those below.
Thank you.
Stephen, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.